First of all, I'd like to thank the organizers of this conference for inviting me here and giving me a day off the farm. As many of you know, we run Cedar Circle Farm, and I grew up on a small farm in Southern California when Southern California was the center of farming in the United States. LA was the biggest farm county when I was a kid. And so every place around my house was farmed. Now every place around my house is paved. And, you know, we only have 3% of the land in the world that is a Mediterranean climate. And, you know, like 10% of that is in Southern California. So we decided instead of farming the best land, we'd pave the best land and produce a lot of babies on it. And when I was growing up as a kid, like my grandpa's Blackfoot, and my dad was from Mississippi, and so we were dirt poor. I mean, like, we didn't have a flush toilet until after I graduated from high school. And a lot of our neighbors didn't either. I mean, you know, I grew up in the late 30s and 40s in California, and it was a time where it was totally rural. And in the classroom, you were just as likely to read California Farmer as you were to, you know, read a textbook. And California Farmer became textbooks to a lot of people because it was a totally rural state. So I decided, well, I didn't want to be that poor all my life, and so I went in the Marine Corps, and they said, wow, you're a lot smarter than you look. And you know, you can probably do anything you want in the world, right? And so I learned how to be an electronics man when I was in there, and I realized that I could study and I could learn. And before that, I didn't think that I could, because I graduated third from the bottom of my class, and there were 1,000 students in the class, so didn't give me a lot of confidence. And but the Marine Corps did, and they, you know, I learned how to study, and then when I came out, I went to junior college and then transferred to the University of California, and then got a fellowship, a full fellowship, to go to the University of Illinois, and got a PhD there, studying tropical forest farmers in Peru. And then I went back to Santa Barbara and got a job teaching at the University of California as an assistant professor of anthropology. So you got two anthropologists on the same panel, so you're stuck with us. And both of us have spent way too much time in our life, I'm sure, studying all the religions of the world. And, you know, when I was a faculty member at Santa Barbara, I was the faculty advisor to the first century Christians. We were studying the Dead Sea Scrolls, right? And so I spent a lot of my life looking at religion, studying religion, and not being that religious. But what happened to me really interestingly is that when I got arrested for burning the Bank of America. Today you'd probably get a medal, you know? And, you know, definitely wouldn't probably go to jail, you know. And but fortunately, I was eating a pastrami sandwich at the time that people torched the bank, and so the owner of the pastrami sandwich shop was my alibi, and it saved me from 32 years in jail. I ended up with a 2-year sentence that was to be served concurrently as 1-year sentence. And before that, I'd been arrested like a dozen times because we were anti-war and civil rights activists, and I grew up in, you know, a family that wore red diapers, you know, so we were like Cindy, we were Marxists. And so it wasn't, you know, strange for me to be activist about things, and no one else in my family wanted to be an activist, but I've been an activist all my life, and I'm like Bill McKibben. I encourage you to get put in jail for your beliefs, because you'll meet the most wonderful people that got put in jail for their beliefs. And a lot of the people that are in jail are no different than you and I. They just made a mistake and got caught. You've made lots of mistakes and didn't get caught, right? So I encourage you to, you know, put your faith on your sleeve and, you know, take a chance to make a difference in this world. Because right now, as Bill says, we're in really deep trouble in the environment, and we're in really deep trouble about climate change. And a lot of us think that it can be fixed by fixing transportation and ending the use of fossil fuels, and by changing our industrial base so that we're much more efficient. But that only deals with half of the climate change, those three things. The other half of the climate change is food and farming. The World Bank in 2009, the World Bank Group, is normally very conservative about everything they say. And in 2009, the World Bank Group top scientists determined that 51% of greenhouse gases come from animal agriculture alone. 51%. And our agriculture in this country is 92.5% of our acreage either grows animals or grows food for animals. Only 7.5% of our acreage grows fruits, nuts, berries, vegetables, melons. So here we are in a situation where our country and the food you eat is the biggest contributor to climate change. Our food system in this country is in deep trouble. And it got in deep trouble early. A lot of people think, well, we didn't start using chemicals until after the Second World War. We started using the most toxic chemicals imaginable after the Civil War. After the Civil War. In 1867, we started using arsenic on the Colorado potato beetle, right? And sulfuric acid on a lot of other crops. And sodium bisulfide. All of these were waste products in search of a dumping ground, and we were it. So we've been using chemicals on our food, potash, which was a waste material from the search for salt in Germany, and sodium nitrate, which is a waste material in the search for salt in Chile. And so we started using all these chemicals in the 1850s and 1860s. We've had 150 years of chemical agriculture. We often talk about how dirty our cars are, but we had dirty agriculture long before we had dirty cars. And we have to fix all of this. I'm not saying we shouldn't fix industry. I'm not saying we shouldn't fix our whole addiction to fossil fuels. I'm not saying that we shouldn't fix our transportation. Too many people are driving around with one car that weighs 6,000 pounds. And so here we are. We have to change all those things, but if we don't change agriculture, we won't change climate change. We won't deal with climate chaos. There's just no way. You can't do it, right? And it's us. It's our habits that need changing the most. I mean, right now in this country, we eat, on average, 12 to 14 ounces of meat a day. That's the average in this country. It depends on the community you're in, but it's 12 to 14 ounces a day. We need to cut that in half. We need to cut it in half. I mean, it's up to you. A lot of times we want to go and beat up the oil companies. We want to beat up the transportation industry. We want to beat up the car companies. And we don't beat up ourselves. The elephant in the room on climate change is us. It's what we eat every day, and that we put up with what we eat every day. And most of what we eat every day is, excuse the word, is shit food. It's bad food. It's junk. I mean, really, and it's full of chemicals. It's full of toxic chemicals, and it shows in our body styles. Look what's happened to us in the last 25 years. 25 years ago, we were the skinniest country in the world. Today we're the fattest. And you can Google the Center for Disease Control and Prevention and look at their obesity maps. In 1985, there was only one state that had an obesity level above 12%. That was Mississippi. Now, Mississippi's obesity level is over 40%. That's all food and lack of exercise. And look what we've gotten in the last 25 years. We've got high fructose corn syrup, genetically modified food, antibiotics in all of our meat, hormones in our meat. The antibiotics are designed to be prophylactic for the animals in confined animal feeding operations. Because they're so close together, they have to give them antibiotics so they don't get sick. But in giving them antibiotics and in making them sedentary, what happened is they found out that they could get a 5% weight gain off the use of the antibiotics, right? So guess who else is getting a weight gain? You've got antibiotics in all your foods. My sister just passed away, and she passed away basically because she had 5 major infections in her organs, and they couldn't take care of them with any antibiotics because she was antibiotic resistant to everything. So at some point we have to figure out, look, this is a serious problem, and the good thing about this is we don't have to petition some chemical company. We don't have to petition a petroleum company. We don't have to petition an auto company. We have to take care of it ourselves. We can fix this, and the way we fix it is changing our agriculture. What happened in like the early 1800s is James Taylor wrote this book called The Arator, and in the book he said, we have exhausted 2/3 of our vegetable matter in the soil. Well, vegetable matter is organic matter. And organic matter in the soil is the food source for the microorganisms. Well, now you all know that, like, if we didn't have microorganisms in our system, we would die in a matter of hours. Because the microorganisms we need in our whole system to make it work, right? The same as with the soil. We're not any different than the soil we came from, dust unto dust. And it's very serious what's going on, because what we've done over the last 150 years is we've exhausted the organic matter in the soil. And that organic matter is what enables sequestration of carbon, right? So the organic matter's literally gone. When we took over that farm in East Thetford, Cedar Circle Farm, and we did tests on the soil, there was less than 1% organic matter in that soil. That means there's nothing there for the critters to eat. And we found hardly any earthworms in the soil. And that's all over this country right now. You can go to any chemically farmed area and you will find out that soil is literally dead. They're just feeding it. It's just a support system to hold the plant up more than anything else. They get all of their nutrients from chemicals that they feed them, right? So that's what you're eating. That's why the population's health is declined incredibly. You see young kids that are incredibly obese. 1/3 of our kids are obese. 1/3. I mean, we've got to fix this, you guys, and you are the ones to do it. You have to reject this food that we're being fed that's not only bad for us, it's bad for the planet. Because there's only 5 major sinks, carbon sinks on the planet. One of them is the atmosphere, which is maxed out by all of the carbon, because what's happened is and the oceans, right, and the soil and the forest and fossil deposits, right? Those are the carbon sinks on the planet. That's all there are. It's not going to go anyplace else. Well, if it can't be sequestered in the soil and the forests, as Cindy was saying, the forests are wiped out in this country, and we're trying to wipe them out in all the rest of the countries. So what's happening is we can't sequester enough carbon, and so that carbon is coming back to haunt us. It's acidifying the oceans. It's trashing the environment. The atmosphere, as we know. So what we have to look at is, like, how can we fix this? And the way to fix it is what we eat and how we farm. Vandana Shiva, the great Indian activist, has always said, look, if we switched over to organic agriculture, in 3 years we would take care of climate change. 3 years, So we're not going to get the government to do that for us. The government has fought us all the way being organic farmers. They haven't helped us at all. They've hindered us, in every situation we've been in. And right now on the Farm Bill, they're trying to cut out most of the organic money, right, that supports organic systems. Organic is the only agriculture that isn't subsidized. All the other agriculture in the country is subsidized in one way or another, right? And so we often think, well, organic food's too expensive. I can't make that change. But organic food is the cheapest food on the planet because you only pay for it once. You only pay for it once. You know, you pay for conventional, what they call conventional food, which is really chemical and genetically modified food. You pay for that at least 5 times. 5 times. First time is at the supermarket. I call that the down payment. The second time you pay for it is at tax time. We just paid for it because, you know, like 80% of all the food we eat in this country is processed food. And what's in processed food? Corn, cotton, soy, canola, rice, wheat, sugar. That eats up 98% of all the subsidies. So the second time you pay for it, you pay almost as much as the first time, but it's paid at tax time. The third time you pay for it is when you go to the doctor, because 76 million people get foodborne illness in this country every year. And 325,000 of them end up in the hospital. This ain't cheap. I just saw my sister in her declining month, $7,000 a month to stay there, right? So that's a big cost. 5,000 people die from foodborne illness every year. 10,000 people die from pesticide poisoning. This makes food all of a sudden not that cheap. The fourth payment is obesity, diabetes, heart disease, stroke, and cancer. All of those are food-related illnesses, right? All of them. So that's the fourth payment. And the fifth payment is, who do you think is going to clean up the agricultural lands that are so polluted from all these chemicals for 150 years? Get a mirror. It's you. You're going to pay for it. Just like we paid to clean up Wall Street and to clean up the mortgage industry, right? And we're going to pay for this. It's us. So the way you change it is not pretending like the government's going to help you and spend all your time trying to change policy. I think that it's important to do that, but the best change you can make is in the marketplace. It's in the marketplace. Like, if you make a choice that you're not going to eat food that is toxic for you, and you're going to eat food that's good for you, sounds like an advertisement for Cedar Circle Farm. But it's an advertisement for your health. It's about your health. I mean, you're the one that's suffering, and you're going to, you know, I'm 76 years old, so I've eaten organic food, you know, as long as I can remember, and it's made me healthy. Really, I mean, and we see people come in all the time and say, God, I changed my diet and it changed my life. I'm asking you here to take this message and go back to your faith-based communities. Because if you look at the Bible, if you look at the Old Testament, you know, in both Deuteronomy and Leviticus, the laws say protect the planet, protect the animals, protect, you know, what you have here that I've given you as God, right? And in the Proverbs it says, don't treat the animals badly, right? So that's a paraphrase, but that's exactly what it says. And like, we're not, you know, we're doing all those things that we're not supposed to, right? We're not taking care of the forest. We're not taking care of the birds. We're not taking care of the fish. We're not taking care of the animals. Right now, our animal meats are grown in the most disgusting ways possible in these confined animal feeding operations that are called CAPOs. There'll be like, you know, 10,000 hogs in one building, right? 10,000 hogs. They cut the tails off so that they don't cannibalize each other. There'll be like 1 million chickens in a building, right? Laying hens or meat chickens. 10,000 cows in a feedlot. You know, this is not regarding animals well as Genesis told us to. This is not the way we should be treating animals. I mean, and we shouldn't be eating those because by eating you're saying, okay, it's fine with me. You can go ahead and treat these animals any way you want. Because now what they do is they see the animals as a dollar sign, you know. They're a machine that produces food for us, right? Instead of this beautiful sentient being, right? We've gotten too far away from that. We have to start treating the animals like we really cared about them, treating the land like we really cared about it, because it is, whether you like it or not, where all of us come from. That's all. That's it. So during the Vietnam War, one thing that was very exciting to me is that when I got arrested for burning the Bank of America, two church denominations took up a collection for my legal defense. And we need to, the churches were critical during the Vietnam War and during the Civil Rights Movement. We all know that. They made an enormous difference. William Sloane Coffin was, a giant with the church, right? And the Berrigan brothers and all of these people, helped us so much through the church. And the church is silent about climate change. Literally silent. I mean, there's been a few outspoken people, but in general, the church is turning its back on one of the most important problems on the planet. It is the most important problem on the planet. So I encourage you to go to your churches, and in your life, change your life about what you're eating. It's only going to be good for you. I mean, if I'm 76 and still, able to work 10, 12 hours a day, some of it might have to do with food. I mean, some of it's genetics, but my sister just died and she was 6 years younger than me. And she ate junk food all her life. She didn't ever believe in eating good food, right? So take care of yourselves and take care of the planet. And, go to your churches, because we need the church right now to do this. It's so critical. So thanks a lot.